Step away from the lane, sir. You and the kid. Now. Brenda's voice cut through Terminal 4 like a slap. She didn't whisper it. She announced it, loud enough for every single person at Gate K-12 to hear. A 4-year-old girl buried her face into her father's neck and started to cry. He had a valid first-class ticket. She never scanned it. She never even looked at it. What Brenda didn't know was that the man she just humiliated had designed the engines on the plane sitting outside her gate. And the CEO of the airline? He was standing 15 feet behind her, watching everything. Comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. And if you haven't yet, subscribe and hit that bell. You don't want to miss what happens next. Ethan Cole hadn't slept in 41 hours. He knew the exact number because he'd been counting since Thursday morning in Denver, standing on a half-finished bridge over the South Platte River at 5 a.m., watching his crew pour the final concrete supports while the temperature sat at 19 degrees. He'd been up there on the scaffolding himself for the last 6 hours of the pour because one of his senior engineers had called in sick. And Ethan Cole was not the kind of man who asked his crew to do something he wouldn't do himself. That bridge was going to hold 60,000 vehicles a day when it opened. It was going to hold because Ethan Cole had checked every rebar placement, every tension cable, every single load-bearing calculation with his own 2 hands. Now those hands were holding his daughter. Lily was 4 years old. She weighed 31 pounds. She had her mother's brown eyes and her father's stubborn jaw. She was wearing pink sneakers with glitter laces, a purple jacket with a fur-lined hood, and she was clutching a one-eared stuffed rabbit named Flopsy, like it was the last thing keeping her tethered to the earth. She was asleep on his shoulder, the kind of deep, heavy sleep that only children and the truly exhausted can manage in a place as loud and bright as Chicago O'Hare International Airport. Ethan shifted her weight to his left arm and adjusted the strap of his backpack, a beat-up JanSport covered in Disney princess stickers that Lily had applied herself, one careful sticker at a time, on a Saturday afternoon that felt like a lifetime ago. He looked like hell, and he knew it. Faded canvas work jacket with a tear on the left elbow. Jeans with concrete dust ground into the knees. Steel-toed boots that had walked through mud, snow, and wet cement in the last 48 hours. His hair was uncombed. His jaw was covered in 2 days of stubble. There were dark circles under his eyes, so deep they looked like bruises. He did not look like a man who belonged in first class. He did not look like a man who had founded a $400 million engineering firm. He did not look like a man who held 17 patents in aerospace structural design, including the lightweight carbon fiber airframe reinforcement system currently installed in every single Boeing 787 Dreamliner in the Sovereign Air fleet. He looked like a tired dad who needed a shower and a bed. And that was exactly the problem. Ethan walked toward Gate K-12 with the slow, careful steps of a man carrying a sleeping child. His boarding pass was pulled up on his phone, tucked into his jacket pocket. Seats 2A and 2B, first class. Sovereign Air, 4 p.m. departure to JFK. He was going to New York for a meeting on Monday morning, a big one. The kind of meeting that happens in boardrooms on the 50th floor with views of the Hudson River and men in suits who control billions of dollars. Ethan was going to present a proposal to retrofit the entire Sovereign Air International fleet with his next-generation structural reinforcement system. The contract was worth $180 million. He'd been working on the proposal for 7 months. His regular babysitter had canceled yesterday. His mother was meeting him at JFK. So Lily was coming with him. That was how it worked when you were a single dad. You didn't get to separate your life into neat little boxes. Work here, family there. Everything was everything, all the time, all at once. He stepped onto the blue carpet of the first-class boarding lane. And that's when he met Brenda. Brenda Harris had been a gate agent for Sovereign Air for 14 years. She had started in ticketing at LaGuardia, moved to gate operations at O'Hare 6 years ago, and had been the gate lead at K-12 for the last 4. Gate K-12 was her kingdom. She knew every Diamond member by name. She knew their drink orders, their seat preferences, their children's names. She sent holiday cards to the regulars. She kept breath mints in her blazer pocket and hand sanitizer on the podium. Her uniform was pressed so sharply you could cut paper with the creases. Her name tag was polished. Her acrylic nails were fresh, done every Tuesday at a salon in Schaumburg. She took pride in one thing above all else: the premium experience. First class was not just a section of the airplane to Brenda. It was a standard. It was a world, and she was the velvet rope. She had been passed over for a supervisor promotion twice. Once 3 years ago, once last spring. Both times the position went to someone younger, someone with a degree, someone who hadn't put in the years Brenda had. It stung. It more than stung. It burned. And the way Brenda dealt with that burn was to exercise every ounce of authority she did have, right here, right now, at this podium, at this gate. If you belonged, you got the smile, the warmth, the welcome back. If you didn't belong, and Brenda decided very quickly who did and didn't belong, you got the wall. Ethan Cole was about to get the wall. He stepped up to the podium. Lily shifted on his shoulder, murmuring something in her sleep. He spoke quietly, trying not to wake her. "Hi, first class, seats 2A and 2B. He reached into his jacket pocket for his phone. Brenda didn't look up. She was typing on her terminal, her acrylic nails clicking against the keyboard in a rapid staccato. She held up one finger without raising her eyes, the universal gesture for wait. Ethan waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. "Excuse me," Ethan said, a little louder. "I'd like to board." Brenda stopped typing. She took a slow breath, the kind of breath that says, "You are interrupting me and I want you to know it," and looked up. Her eyes started at his boots. Concrete dust, scuffed steel toes, a smear of dried mud on the left sole. Her eyes moved up to his jeans, faded, dusty, a small tear near the right knee. Up to the canvas jacket, worn, the torn elbow, a coffee stain on the chest, the backpack with the Disney stickers, the sleeping child with the ratty stuffed rabbit, and finally, his face. Unshaven, exhausted, not smiling. Brenda's expression changed. It was subtle, but unmistakable. Her lips tightened, her chin lifted. Her eyes narrowed just slightly, as if she had run a calculation in her head, and the answer had come back negative. "Economy boarding hasn't started yet, sir," Brenda said. Her voice had that particular sweetness that isn't sweet at all. The kind of voice people use when they're being polite as a weapon. "The general boarding area is right over there. We'll call Group 5 shortly." She pointed past him, toward the long, snaking economy line that stretched back toward the food court. "I'm not in economy," Ethan said. "I'm in first class, seats 2A and 2B. He held out his phone. The Sovereign Air app was open. The QR code was glowing on the screen. Brenda didn't take the phone. She didn't lean forward to look at it. She didn't reach for her scanner. She smiled. It was the kind of smile that has no warmth in it whatsoever. "Sir, this lane is for verified first-class passengers, Diamond status members, and active military in uniform. I need to ask you to step back to the general boarding area." "I have a verified first-class ticket," Ethan said. "If you scan it, you'll see." I've been doing this for 14 years, Brenda said. I know what a first-class passenger looks like. The words hung in the air. Ethan stared at her. She stared back. Neither of them blinked. What does a first-class passenger look like, Brenda? Ethan asked. His voice was quiet, not angry, not yet. Sir, I don't appreciate the tone. We've had issues with fraudulent mobile passes this month. I am not going to scan an unverified QR code from someone who... She stopped herself, but not fast enough. Someone who what? Ethan said. Someone who hasn't provided proper identification. Do you have a printed confirmation? A credit card receipt? Some form of... It's on the app, your airline's app. The QR code is right here. Scan it. I'm not scanning anything until I'm satisfied that... That what? That I look rich enough? Brenda's jaw tightened. Sir, lower your voice. I haven't raised my voice, Ethan said. And he hadn't. He was speaking at the same measured volume he'd been using since he walked up. My daughter is sleeping. I don't raise my voice when she's sleeping. I'm asking you to do your job. And I am doing my job, Brenda snapped. My job is to protect the premium boarding experience for our valued customers. And right now, you are disrupting that experience. I am asking you, for the last time, to step out of the first-class lane. And I'm telling you, for the last time, that I have a first-class ticket. Scan it. He held the phone closer. The QR code was inches from the scanner. All she had to do was press one button. One tap of the laser. 2 seconds. Beep. Green screen. Welcome aboard. She didn't touch it. Sir, anyone can screenshot a QR code off the internet. I see it every week. People pull up fake boarding passes trying to get into the lounge, trying to cut the line. I'm not falling for it. Then check the manifest, Ethan said. My name is Ethan Cole. Look it up on your computer. I cannot access the manifest while the system is in boarding mode. It's locked. Then unlock it. I don't have the authority to... You're the gate lead. Your name tag says gate lead. You have the authority. Brenda's neck flushed red. The vein along her jawline pulsed. She gripped the edge of the podium with both hands. Sir, I have made my decision. You are not boarding through this lane. If you have a legitimate ticket, you can go back to the ticketing counter and have them print a paper boarding pass. Otherwise, please step aside. I have actual first-class passengers approaching. Ethan turned around. Behind him, an older couple had appeared. The man was wearing a camel hair overcoat. The woman had a silk scarf around her neck and carried a Chanel handbag. They looked like a magazine advertisement for retirement planning. The Hendersons. Brenda's face transformed instantly. The ice melted. The wall came down. She became a completely different person in the span of a single heartbeat. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, oh my goodness, it's so good to see you. How was Scottsdale? She was beaming, glowing. She stepped to the side of the podium, physically moving around Ethan as if he were a piece of furniture, and gestured the Hendersons forward with both hands. She didn't scan their tickets either. She just waved them through. Ethan watched the whole thing. He felt the knot in his chest pull tighter. You didn't scan their tickets, he said. They are Diamond members, Brenda said, not looking at him. I know them personally. You don't need to know me personally. You need to scan my ticket. That's the job. That's the whole job. Don't tell me how to do my job. Somebody needs to, Brenda, because right now you're not doing it. Brenda spun around. Her eyes were wide. Her nostrils flared. She pointed a manicured finger at his chest. You do not speak to me that way. I am the gate lead at this terminal. I have the authority to deny boarding to anyone who displays threatening or suspicious behavior. And you, sir, are displaying both. I'm standing here holding a sleeping 4-year-old and a stuffed rabbit. What exactly is threatening about that? Your attitude, your refusal to comply, your aggressive posture. I'm not moving aggressively. I'm not moving at all. That's when Lily woke up. The tension, the sharp voices, the hard edges in the air, pulled her out of sleep like a hand reaching into water. She lifted her head from Ethan's shoulder. Her eyes were glassy, confused. She looked around at the bright terminal lights, the faces of strangers staring, the woman behind the podium with the angry eyes. "Daddy?" Lily's voice was small, fragile. "Daddy, what's wrong?" Ethan's entire body changed. The tension left his shoulders, his jaw unclenched. His voice dropped to something soft and careful. "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. We're just waiting to get on the plane." Lily looked at Brenda. Brenda looked at Lily. The child's lip quivered. "Daddy, why is the lady mad at us?" The words landed on the terminal like a grenade with a delayed fuse. People in the economy line who had been pretending not to listen stopped pretending. A woman with a rolling suitcase put her hand over her mouth. A man in a business suit shook his head. "Did we do something bad, Daddy?" "No, baby," Ethan said. He pressed his lips to the top of her head. "We didn't do anything bad. The lady just needs to check our ticket, and then we'll get on the plane, and you can watch your shows, okay?" "Okay." Lily tucked her face back into his neck, but she didn't close her eyes. She was watching Brenda from over Ethan's shoulder, the way children watch things they don't understand, but know aren't right. Ethan looked at Brenda. Something had shifted in his eyes. Before, he was tired and annoyed. Now he was something else. Now there was a protective fire behind his exhaustion, the kind of quiet, dangerous resolve that only a parent knows. "You just scared my daughter," Ethan said. "She's 4 years old. She doesn't understand why a stranger is yelling at her father. So here's what's going to happen. You are going to scan this ticket. You are going to let us board, and we are going to pretend this never happened. That's the best ending for everyone." Brenda should have taken the off-ramp. Any reasonable person would have. The child was upset. The crowd was watching. The situation had escalated far beyond a boarding dispute. A quick scan, an apologetic smile, welcome aboard, and this all goes away. But Brenda couldn't back down. Not in front of the Hendersons. Not in front of the economy passengers. Not in front of the college kid who had his phone out, clearly recording. Backing down meant admitting she was wrong. And Brenda Harris had not been wrong at Gate K-12 in 6 years. "Sir," Brenda said, and her voice was different now, higher, louder. This wasn't a conversation anymore. This was a performance. "You are creating a disturbance in a federal boarding area. You are refusing to comply with airline personnel. You have a minor child with you, and you are escalating a situation that could become unsafe for her." She paused to let that sink in. She was framing him. She was turning his daughter into a liability, turning the thing that should have earned him compassion into the thing that made him look dangerous. "I am calling security." Brenda reached for the phone on the podium. She picked it up and spoke into it without breaking eye contact with Ethan. "Security to Gate K-12. I have an uncooperative male passenger refusing to leave the priority boarding area. He has a minor child with him, and the situation is escalating, requesting immediate assistance." She hung up. She folded her arms across her chest. She smiled. It was the smile of someone who believed she had won. Ethan stood perfectly still. He held Lily close. He felt her small fingers gripping his jacket collar. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest, fast, like a bird's. "It's okay, Lily," he whispered. "Daddy's right here." 2 TSA officers appeared within 90 seconds. The first was Officer Davis, Mid-50s, thick neck, calm eyes. The kind of man who had seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by any of it. The second was Officer Reyes, younger, leaner, rigid posture, by the book. "What's the situation?" Davis asked, looking from Brenda to Ethan. Brenda spoke first, fast, breathless. The words tumbled out in a rehearsed cascade. "This passenger has been refusing to leave the first-class lane for the last 10 minutes. He does not have a verified ticket. I believe his mobile boarding pass is fraudulent. He's been verbally aggressive with me. He's blocking other passengers. And he has a small child with him, and I'm concerned about the safety of the situation." Davis looked at Ethan. He looked at Lily on his shoulder. He looked at the stuffed rabbit dangling from her hand. "Sir, you have a boarding pass?" "Right here." Ethan held out his phone. "Seats 2A and 2B. First class. She refused to scan it." Davis took the phone. He looked at the screen. QR code. Sovereign Air app. Name: Cole, Ethan. He tilted the phone toward Brenda. "Looks legitimate to me. Why didn't you scan it?" "Because it's obviously a screenshot," Brenda said. "Look at him, officer." "Does he look like he paid $8,000 for 2 first-class tickets?" Davis paused. He looked at Ethan again. The work boots, the dusty jeans, the sleeping child. "What someone looks like isn't really my department, Brenda," Davis said slowly. "I deal in what's on the screen, and what's on the screen looks like a valid boarding pass. Why don't you just scan it and we can all move on? I am the gate lead. I have discretion to deny boarding, and I am exercising that discretion." "On what grounds?" "Suspicious behavior, possible fraud, refusal to comply." Davis sighed. He looked at Reyes. Reyes shrugged. "Ma'am, he's holding a kid," Davis said. "He asked you to scan a ticket. That's not exactly a hostage situation." "I don't appreciate your tone either, officer. I am the airline representative at this gate. If I deny boarding, protocol requires that you escort the passenger to the ticketing counter. That is the procedure." Davis rubbed the back of his neck. He looked at Ethan. There was something in his eyes, an apology that protocol wouldn't let him say out loud. "Sir, technically, if the airline rep denies boarding, we have to ask you to go to the counter to sort it out. I know it's frustrating, but—" "The flight leaves in 18 minutes, Ethan said. "If I go back to the counter, I miss the flight. If I miss the flight, I miss a meeting in New York on Monday morning that I've been preparing for 7 months." "I understand, sir, but—" "I don't think you do." Ethan's voice dropped. Not in volume, in register. It became something low and serious and absolutely certain. "My company designed the structural reinforcement system in the airframe of the plane sitting at this gate. I hold a seat on the advisory board of the airline that operates it. And this woman won't scan my ticket because I have concrete dust on my boots." Brenda laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "Oh, here we go," she said, rolling her eyes. "First he's a passenger, now he's an engineer, now he's on the board. What's next? He owns the airport?" She looked at the Hendersons, who were still hovering near the jet bridge, watching the scene with wide eyes. She looked at the economy passengers, some of whom were recording. She spread her hands in a "can you believe this guy?" gesture. "Sir, if you were really that important, you'd be on a private jet, not arguing with a gate agent at O'Hare." "My plane is in maintenance at Teterboro," Ethan said flatly. "Sure it is." Brenda shook her head. "Officers, I want him removed. Now." Officer Reyes stepped forward. He was young. He followed the chain of command. The airline rep had denied boarding. Protocol was clear. "Sir, I need you to step away from the podium." Lily felt Reyes moving closer. She turned her head and saw the uniform, the badge, the belt with things on it that scared her. Her eyes went wide. "Daddy!" She started to cry. Not a whimper, not a fuss. A real, terrified cry. The cry of a 4-year-old who didn't understand why people in uniforms were walking toward her father. She buried her face in Ethan's neck and sobbed. Her small body shook. Flopsy fell to the floor. Ethan caught the rabbit before it hit the ground. He held his daughter tight. He pressed his cheek against the top of her head. "Shh, baby, it's okay. Nobody's going to hurt us, I promise." But his eyes were on Brenda. And what was in them wasn't anger. It wasn't defeat. It was something much more dangerous. It was certainty. "You just made a 4-year-old cry," Ethan said to Brenda. His voice was barely above a whisper, but every person within 20 feet heard it. "You called police on a man holding his daughter. You refused to do the one thing your job requires you to do. And you did it because I don't look the way you think I should look." Brenda opened her mouth to respond, but a woman's voice from the economy line cut through first. "He didn't do anything wrong." It was Maria, mid-30s, traveling alone, standing near the front of the economy line. "I've been standing here the whole time. He asked you to scan his phone. That's it. That's literally all he did." "Mind your business," Brenda snapped. "This is everyone's business," Maria shot back. "You're terrorizing a man and his kid over a boarding pass." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "Just scan the ticket." Someone else, "This is messed up." Brenda pointed at the crowd. "All of you, stay out of this. This is a security matter." But the crowd wasn't listening to Brenda anymore. The court of public opinion had convened, and the verdict was already in. Ethan made his move. He didn't shout, he didn't push, he didn't threaten. He shifted Lily to his left arm, reached into his jacket pocket with his right hand, and pulled out his phone. He scrolled past his contacts with his thumb, past Mom, past his assistant, past his project managers and engineers and lawyers. He stopped on a name he hadn't called in over a year. Richard Sterling, CEO, Sovereign Air, Personal. He pressed dial. The phone rang twice. "Ethan! Ethan Cole! My God, I haven't heard from you since the retreat in Aspen. How the hell are you?" "Not great, Richard. I'm at O'Hare, gate K-12. I'm trying to board your 4 o'clock to JFK. Are you in the lounge? Let me call the concierge." "I'm not in the lounge, Richard. I'm standing at the gate with my 4-year-old daughter, and your gate agent has denied me boarding. She called security. My daughter is crying." Silence on the line. A long, heavy silence. "She did what?" "She refused to scan my ticket. She says I don't look like a first-class passenger. She told security I'm aggressive. I'm holding Lily on my shoulder, Richard. She's 4. "Ethan." Richard's voice changed. The warmth was gone. What replaced it was cold, hard steel. "Ethan, stay right where you are. Do not move. Do not leave that gate. I'm not going anywhere. I landed at O'Hare 25 minutes ago. I'm in Terminal 4 right now, doing a site walk with the regional director. I am 2 minutes away from you. Then you might want to hurry. She's about to close the jet bridge." "She is not closing a goddamn thing." The line went dead. Ethan put his phone back in his pocket. He looked at Brenda, who was glaring at him with her arms crossed. "Who was that?" Brenda demanded. "Who did you just call?" Ethan didn't answer. He stepped off the blue carpet and moved a few feet to the side, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the tarmac. He bounced Lily gently on his shoulder. "Daddy, can we go home?" Lily whispered. "Soon, sweetheart. Real soon. Someone's coming to help us." Brenda stormed over to him, abandoning her podium. I told you to leave this gate area. You are loitering. Officer Davis, he's still here. Davis held up a hand. He stepped out of the lane, Brenda. He's not blocking anyone. Let it go. I will not let it go. This is my gate. She turned back to Ethan. She stepped close. Too close. Her voice dropped to a hiss that only he could hear. I don't know who you think you called, but it's not going to help you. I've been here 15 years. I run this gate. Nobody tells me who gets on my plane. You can stand here all you want. That door is closing in 10 minutes, and you and your kid are going to watch it close from right here. Ethan looked over Brenda's shoulder. Something had caught his eye at the far end of the concourse. The double doors had swung open. A group of men in navy suits were walking through. They moved fast. They moved with purpose. The crowd parted around them without being asked. In the center of the group was a tall man with silver hair and a jawline that belonged on a coin. He was flanked by the airport's regional director and 2 senior executives. Richard Sterling, CEO of Sovereign Air, was 50 feet away and closing. He wasn't smiling. Ethan looked at Brenda. She was still inches from his face, still breathing hard, still certain she had won. Brenda, Ethan said quietly, you're going to want to turn around. I'm not falling for that. I'm serious. Turn around. There's nothing behind me except Brenda. The voice hit the gate area like a thunderclap. It echoed off the high terminal ceiling. It stopped every conversation within 100 feet. Brenda knew that voice. Every Sovereign Air employee knew that voice. It was the voice from the orientation videos, the voice from the quarterly town halls, the voice from the annual holiday message that played on every break room TV in every airport in the country. The blood drained from Brenda's face so fast she swayed on her feet. She turned around. Richard Sterling stood 6 feet away. His eyes were locked on her. His face held an expression she had never seen on a CEO before. Not in person, not on video, not in any corporate communication. It was the face of a man who had already made a decision. And the decision was not in her favor. Richard Sterling didn't look at Brenda. He walked right past her like she was a piece of terminal furniture, a stanchion, a trash can, something you step around without thinking about. He walked straight to Ethan. Ethan! He extended his hand. Then he saw Lily. The child was peeking out from behind Ethan's collar, her eyes red and wet, her cheeks flushed, Flopsy pressed against her chin. She was watching the silver-haired man the way small animals watch things they haven't decided are safe yet. Richard Sterling had 3 grandchildren. He had held babies in boardrooms and bounced toddlers on his knee at company picnics. He knew what a scared child looked like, and seeing this one, seeing the tear tracks on her face, the way her fingers gripped her father's jacket like she was afraid someone was going to pull him away, something shifted behind his eyes. "Is this Lily?" Richard asked. His voice was different now, softer, lower. The CEO voice was gone. This was the grandfather voice. "Yeah," Ethan said. "She's had a rough afternoon." Richard leaned in slightly. He didn't reach for the child. He knew better than to touch a frightened kid who didn't know him. Instead, he looked at the stuffed rabbit. "That's a fine rabbit," Richard said to Lily. "What's her name?" Lily studied him for a long moment. Then, quietly, "Flopsy." "Flopsy," Richard repeated, nodding seriously, as if this were important information. "Flopsy looks very brave. She must take after your dad." Lily almost smiled. Almost. Then Richard straightened up. He turned around, and the grandfather disappeared. What replaced him was something Brenda Harris had never seen up close and never wanted to see again. Richard Sterling walked toward the podium. Each step was deliberate, measured. The regional director, a man named Carl, who looked like he was actively trying not to vomit, trailed 2 steps behind. The 2 executives flanking them had gone completely silent. Brenda was standing where Richard had left her, frozen in place. Her mouth was open, but nothing was coming out. Her hands were shaking at her sides. She looked like a woman who had just heard a noise in a dark house and was waiting to find out what made it. "Mr. Sterling?" Brenda managed. Her voice cracked on the second syllable. She tried to smile. It came out as a grimace, the kind of expression you make at the dentist when they tell you to relax. "Sir, I had no idea you were visiting today. What an honor. I was just handling a security situation. This passenger was—" "Stop." One word. Richard said it without raising his voice. He didn't need to. The word carried the weight of a man who employed 42,000 people and could end any one of their careers with a phone call. Brenda stopped. "You denied boarding to this man," Richard said. "Sir, his ticket looked— I had concerns about—" "Yes or no, Brenda? You denied boarding to this man." Brenda swallowed. "Yes, sir, but I had reason to—" "You denied boarding to this man while he was holding his 4-year-old daughter." "Sir, the child was—the situation was—" "You called security on a father holding a sleeping child." "He was being aggressive, Mr. Sterling. He refused to—" "I watched you for 2 minutes, Brenda." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. "I was standing at the end of the concourse. I watched you for 2 full minutes before I walked over here. I saw him hold out his phone. I saw you refuse to take it. I saw you wave through another couple without scanning their passes. And I saw his daughter wake up crying." Brenda's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. "He never raised his voice," Richard continued. "He never moved aggressively. He never threatened you. He stood on the blue carpet and asked you to scan a boarding pass. And you called the police." "I called security, sir, not the police." "The distinction is not going to save you, Brenda." Richard stepped behind the podium. Brenda scrambled sideways to make room, pressing herself against the wall like she was trying to disappear into it. Richard's fingers moved across the keyboard. 3 keystrokes. The terminal beeped. "You told him the manifest was locked," Richard said, reading the screen. "You said you couldn't look up his name because the system was in boarding mode." "I thought it was—" "The system is in boarding mode. Boarding mode allows passenger lookup. It's on page 12 of the operations manual." "I know because I wrote that manual." He looked at her. "You lied." "I made a mistake, sir. I thought—" "You lied to a passenger. Then you lied to security. You told Officer Davis that this man was aggressive and threatening. Was he?" Richard looked at Davis. The officer had been standing quietly to the side, watching the entire scene unfold with the expression of a man who was very glad he hadn't done anything stupid. "Officer Davis," Richard said. "Was this man aggressive?" Davis straightened up. "No, sir. He was calm the entire time. He held the child the whole time. He asked her to scan his ticket. That's all I saw." "Thank you." Richard turned back to Brenda. "So you lied to security about a passenger's behavior in a federal boarding area. Do you understand that filing a false report about a passenger can result in criminal charges?" Brenda's legs buckled slightly. She caught herself on the counter. "I didn't file a report. I just called for assistance." "You told them he was aggressive. He wasn't. You told them the ticket was fraudulent. You never checked. You told them you couldn't access the manifest. You could. 3 lies in 10 minutes, Brenda. That's impressive, even for this industry." Richard picked up Ethan's phone from where it sat on the podium counter. He held it under the scanner. Beep. The screen flashed green. Cole, Ethan. Seats 2A, 2B, first class. And underneath the name, a tag. Not the usual tags. Not frequent flyer, or special assistance, or wheelchair requested. This tag was red. It read, Corporate Partner / Board Liaison. Brenda stared at the screen. She read it once. She read it again. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Board Liaison, she whispered. Brenda, Richard said, and now his voice took on the tone of a man delivering a eulogy. Do you know who Ethan Cole is? Brenda shook her head. A tear slid down her left cheek, cutting a line through her foundation. Ethan Cole is the founder and chief engineer of Cole Structural Systems. 6 years ago, his company developed the carbon fiber airframe reinforcement technology that is installed in every single 787 Dreamliner in our fleet. Every one of them, including the airplane sitting on the other side of that jet bridge. Richard pointed at the window. The tail of the 787 was visible, the Sovereign Air logo catching the gray afternoon light. The man in the work boots designed the bones of that airplane, Richard said. He holds 17 patents that make it possible for that plane to fly. Without his technology, that aircraft doesn't meet the weight specifications required for our trans-Pacific routes. Without his technology, Sovereign Air loses 31% of its international revenue. The crowd had gone absolutely silent. The economy passengers, the gate agents at neighboring podiums, the TSA officers, the Hendersons near the jet bridge. Everyone was listening. Furthermore, Richard continued, Ethan is here because he is flying to New York to present a proposal to my board of directors on Monday morning. A proposal to retrofit our entire international fleet with his next-generation structural reinforcement system. A contract worth $180 million. He let the number hang in the air. And you told him he didn't belong in first class. Brenda was crying openly now. The tears were smearing her mascara into dark streaks that ran down her cheeks like cracks in a mask. She grabbed the edge of the counter with both hands. I didn't know, she gasped. I swear I didn't know. He was wearing work clothes. He had dust on his boots. He didn't look like what? Ethan's voice came from behind Richard. Quiet, steady, devastating. He walked forward, Lily still on his hip. The child had stopped crying. She was watching the adults with those wide, serious eyes that children get when they understand that something important is happening, even if they can't name what it is. He didn't look like what, Brenda? Ethan repeated. Like I could afford it? Like I earned it? Like I belonged? Brenda couldn't meet his eyes. She looked at the floor. I have concrete dust on my boots because I was standing on a bridge yesterday, Ethan said. I have a tear in my jacket because I caught it on a rebar tie. My jeans are dirty because I do the work myself. I don't sit in an office and send emails, Brenda. I go to the site. I climb the scaffolding. I check every weld and every bolt because when a bridge or an airplane fails, people die. He shifted Lily to his other arm. She laid her head on his shoulder, watching Brenda with an expression that was not quite pity and not quite fear, but something in between. I don't dress up to fly because I don't have time to dress up. I came straight from a construction site to a plane, to another plane, to this airport. I brought my daughter because her babysitter canceled, and I don't have a wife to stay home with her. She died 2 years ago. The silence in the terminal was so complete that Ethan could hear the HVAC system cycling air through the vents above. So I do everything alone, Ethan said. I run the company, I build the planes, I raise my daughter. I show up in whatever clothes I was wearing when the last job ended. and I do not have time. I do not have patience for someone who looks at a tired father holding his kid and decides he's a criminal because his boots are dirty. Brenda made a sound. It was small and broken, somewhere between a sob and a hiccup. She covered her mouth with her hand. "You didn't fail because you didn't recognize me," Ethan said. "You failed because it mattered to you. If I really had been just some regular guy in a hoodie with a 4-year-old, no company, no patents, no money, would that have made it okay? Would it have been fine to humiliate him? To call the police on him in front of his kid?" He didn't wait for an answer. He already knew it. "You treat people well when you think they matter," Ethan said. "The real test is how you treat them when you think they don't." The crowd in the economy line erupted, clapping, a few people cheering. Maria, the woman who had spoken up earlier, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. The college kid with the phone gave a thumbs up from behind his screen, still recording. Richard stepped forward. The CEO mask was back. The moment of human reckoning was over. Now it was corporate execution. "Carl," Richard said to the regional director, "take her badge." Brenda let out a sound that came from somewhere deep, a wail that started in her chest and tore its way out of her throat. She clutched her name tag with both hands like a child, holding a toy someone is trying to take. "No, please, Mr. Sterling, please. I have 14 years with this company. I have a mortgage. I have bills. You can't fire me for one mistake." "One mistake?" Richard said. He counted on his fingers. "You profiled a passenger based on his appearance. You refused to perform the basic function of your job. You lied about system access. You lied to security about his behavior. You made a 4-year-old girl cry. And you jeopardized a corporate partnership worth more than you will earn in 100 lifetimes. That is not one mistake, Brenda. That is a pattern of choices." "But I was protecting the premium experience." "You were protecting your ego. There's a difference." Brenda looked around wildly. She looked at the Hendersons. "Mr. Henderson, you saw it. You were here. Tell them he was blocking you. Tell them." Mr. Henderson cleared his throat. He looked at the CEO. He looked at the crowd. He looked at Andre. Then he straightened his overcoat and spoke. "The gentleman was perfectly polite," Henderson said. "He asked you to scan his phone. You refused. You waved us through without checking our tickets. He simply asked you to give him the same courtesy." Henderson paused. "My wife and I were uncomfortable the entire time. Not because of him. Because of you." Brenda's last ally had defected. She was alone. Ethan raised his hand. "Richard, hold on." Everyone stopped. Richard turned. Brenda looked up with a desperate, flickering hope in her eyes. The hope of a drowning person who sees a hand reaching toward the water. "The flight leaves in 10 minutes, Ethan said. "There are 160 people in that economy line who need to get to New York tonight. I'm not going to let them be late because of this." He looked at Brenda. He studied her for a long moment. The ruined makeup, the shaking hands, the name tag she was still clutching. "Let her finish boarding the plane," Ethan said. Brenda gasped. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Cole. I swear I will—" "I'm not finished." Brenda's mouth snapped shut. "Let her finish boarding the plane," Ethan said again, "but not from behind the podium." She thought scanning tickets was beneath her. "Fine. She can load the bags." Richard's expression shifted. He understood. He understood exactly what Ethan was doing. "You heard him," Richard said to Brenda. "Grab a high-vis vest. Go down to the tarmac. You're on bag duty until this aircraft pushes back. Every bag loaded on time, or we're having a very different conversation about your severance." Brenda looked at the window. Through the glass, the tarmac was gray and wet. Light snow was falling sideways in the wind. The baggage carts were piled high. The ramp crews were bundled in heavy coats and gloves, their breath visible in the cold.
"But it's freezing out there,"
Brenda whispered. She looked at her hands, her manicured nails, her pressed uniform. "Move," Richard said. "Now." Brenda stripped off her blazer. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely pull the oversized fluorescent vest over her blouse. She walked to the jet bridge door. She stopped. She looked back at Ethan one more time. He was already walking past her. Lily was on his shoulder. The child looked back at Brenda over Ethan's arm. Those brown eyes, her mother's eyes, watched the woman in the yellow vest standing at the top of the stairs that led down to the cold. Lily didn't wave. She didn't say anything. She just looked. And then Ethan carried her through the door and down the jet bridge. The young gate agent, who had been standing frozen behind the secondary podium for the last 15 minutes, stepped forward. His name tag read Marcus. He was 23 years old. His hands were trembling. Richard looked at him. "You. Finish boarding. Start with Group 1. Get these people on the plane."
"Yes, sir."
Marcus's voice cracked, but he moved to the podium and started scanning. Richard straightened his tie. He looked at Officer Davis. "Officer, thank you for your patience. I trust you'll include an accurate account in your report." "Every word, sir," Davis said. He glanced toward the jet bridge stairs where Brenda had disappeared. "Every single word." Richard walked down the jet bridge. He paused at the aircraft door, spoke briefly with the lead flight attendant, and then stepped inside. The cabin was warm. The jazz was playing. The lavender-scented air felt like another world compared to the chaos he had just walked through. He found Ethan already settled in seat 2A. Lily was in 2B, the window seat, kneeling on the wide leather cushion with her face pressed against the glass.
"Daddy, look,"
Lily said. She pointed down at the tarmac.
"There's a lady in a yellow jacket."
Ethan leaned over and looked. Brenda was down there. The high-vis vest flapped in the wind like a broken wing. Her hair, which had been lacquered into a rigid helmet an hour ago, was plastered flat against her skull by the sleet. She was standing in front of the baggage conveyor belt, staring at a pile of suitcases like a woman staring at a mountain she had never been asked to climb. A ramp agent, a stocky man with a thick neck and no patience, was pointing at the conveyor and shouting something Ethan couldn't hear through the glass. The message was clear enough. "Start loading." Brenda reached for the first bag. It was a large black hardshell, easily 50 pounds. She grabbed the handle, pulled. Nothing happened. She planted her feet and pulled harder. The bag lurched free and the momentum sent her stumbling backward. She caught herself, barely, and dragged the bag toward the belt. Her acrylic nails scraped against the wet plastic. One snapped off. Ethan saw her jerk her hand back and clutch it to her chest. Sarah, the lead flight attendant, appeared at his elbow. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Cole. Can I get you and your daughter anything? Warm milk? A blanket?" "Warm milk for Lily would be great," Ethan said. "And just water for me." "Of course. And Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry for what happened out there." "It's not your fault, Sarah, but thank you." Lily turned away from the window. "Daddy, the yellow jacket lady fell down." Ethan looked. Brenda was on her hands and knees on the tarmac. A rolling duffel bag had gotten away from her on the wet concrete. She scrambled after it, slipping twice before she caught the handle. When she stood up, her uniform pants were soaked from the knees down. Dark stains of oil and slush covered her from hip to ankle. Richard Sterling appeared in the aisle. He sat down in seat 2C, across from Ethan. Sarah brought him a glass of champagne without being asked. He took it and drank half in one swallow. "She's not having a good time down there," Richard said, glancing out the window. "She shouldn't be," Ethan said. He watched Brenda heave a golf bag onto the conveyor. She was crying. He could tell by the way her shoulders hitched between lifts.
15 minutes ago, she was willing to have me arrested in front of my daughter. She can throw bags in the cold for 20 minutes. You're being generous, Richard said. I would have taken her badge on the spot. You still might. But right now, those people in economy need their luggage on this plane, and she's going to put it there. Every single bag. Daddy, Lily said, tugging on Ethan's sleeve, why is the yellow jacket lady throwing suitcases? Ethan looked at his daughter. She was genuinely confused. In her world, the lady who had been mean was now doing hard work in the cold, and the connection between cause and effect was too big for a 4-year-old to grasp. She's helping, Ethan said carefully.
She made some bad choices, and now she's helping to make it right. Lily considered this with a gravity that only a 4-year-old can bring to a moral question. Is she going to be nice now? I hope so, sweetheart. Lily nodded, apparently satisfied, and turned back to the window. Down on the tarmac, the last bags were going onto the belt. Brenda lifted the final suitcase, a pink hardshell that belonged to Mrs. Henderson, though Brenda didn't know that, and wouldn't have appreciated the irony if she did. She heaved it onto the conveyor. It caught the edge, and she had to shove it with both hands to get it moving. The cargo door swung shut with a heavy metallic clang that vibrated through the belly of the aircraft. The ramp agent waved the all clear. The ground crew began pulling the chocks from the wheels. Brenda stood there, alone. The vest hung off her like a deflated balloon. Her blouse was transparent with sweat and sleet. Her hands were red and raw, 2 fingernails missing, the others cracked and jagged. She was shivering so hard her teeth chattered. The engines began to spool. The high-pitched whine climbed through the frequency range, vibrating the air, vibrating the ground, vibrating the bones of the woman standing 20 feet from the left engine intake. The aircraft began to push back. Brenda watched it go. She stood on the empty tarmac in the snow, and the exhaust, and the noise, and she watched the plane that she should have been working inside, carrying the man she should have helped, taxi slowly toward the runway. The jet blast hit her, a wall of hot kerosene-scented air that flattened the vest against her body and whipped her ruined hair across her face. She staggered back a step, then 2. The plane turned onto taxiway Charlie and disappeared around the corner of Terminal 4. Brenda was alone. Inside the aircraft, the pilot's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we are number 2 for departure. Flight time to New York Kennedy is approximately 2 hours and 45 minutes. Sit back, relax, and thank you for flying Sovereign Air. Lily had already found the entertainment system. She was watching something with animated dogs. Sarah had brought her warm milk in a real ceramic cup, and Lily was holding it with both hands, Flopsy tucked under her arm. Ethan pulled out his laptop. He had work to do. The presentation for Monday wasn't going to finish itself. But before he opened the file, he sat for a moment and just watched his daughter. She was okay. She had already moved on, the way children do. The fear was gone. The tears were dry. She was absorbed in her show, warm and safe, and 30,000 feet away from the woman who had tried to make her father feel like nothing. But Ethan hadn't moved on. Not yet. He thought about what would have happened if Richard Sterling hadn't been at O'Hare today, if the CEO hadn't landed 20 minutes before him, if Ethan had just been a man in work clothes with no powerful friends to call. He would have been escorted out. He would have missed his flight. His daughter would have watched her father be removed from an airport by security. And Brenda would have gone back to her podium, straightened her name tag, and called the next passenger with a smile. That was the part that stayed with him. Not the humiliation. He'd survived worse. The part that stayed with him was knowing that Brenda would have done it again. Tomorrow. Next week. Next month. To someone else who didn't look the part. Someone who didn't have a CEO on speed dial.
Someone who would just have to take it. Richard, sitting across the aisle, was staring at his phone. His face was grim. "The video is already online," Richard said quietly. 4 million views. Someone tagged it, Gatekeeper Brenda. It's trending. "I don't care about the video," Ethan said. "You should."
Because by the time we land, the board is going to have seen it, and they're going to have questions. "Good," Ethan said. He opened his laptop. "I have answers." He pulled up the retrofit proposal. $180 million. The future of Sovereign Air's fleet. The reason he had been in Denver, on a bridge, in the cold, with concrete on his boots and no time to change. The cursor blinked on the screen. Ethan began to type. Lily sipped her milk. Flopsy sat guard on the armrest. The engines hummed at cruising altitude, carrying them east through the darkening sky, toward New York, toward the boardroom, toward the moment when everything Brenda had set in motion would reach its final, irreversible conclusion. The plane touched down at JFK at 6:47 p.m. Lily was asleep again, Flopsy wedged between her cheek and the window, her small mouth slightly open, her breathing slow and even. Ethan closed his laptop and sat for a moment, watching her. 2 years. 2 years since Sarah died, and every single day had been a negotiation between the life he was building and the life he was holding together. The company didn't stop because his wife got sick. The patents didn't file themselves because he was sitting in a hospital room watching monitors. And Lily didn't stop needing a father because the world kept demanding an engineer. He did both, every day. He did both. He unbuckled Lily's seatbelt and lifted her carefully, tucking Flopsy into the crook of her arm. She murmured something and pressed her face into his neck. Richard Sterling was waiting in the aisle. He had his coat on, his phone in his hand, and the look on his face that Ethan recognized. The look of a man doing damage calculations in his head. "My driver will take you wherever you need to go," Richard said. "My mom's waiting at arrivals. I'll hand off Lily and head to the hotel." "Ethan," Richard lowered his voice, "the board has seen the video." "Arthur Pendleton called me 20 minutes ago. He's already in the building. He wants a meeting, first thing." 9 a.m. was always the plan. "He wants it at 8. "Then I'll be there at 8. Richard nodded. He looked at Lily, sleeping on Ethan's shoulder. Something softened in his face, just for a moment. "She's a tough kid." "She's the toughest person I know," Ethan said. They walked off the plane together. The flight crew lined the galley, nodding at Ethan as he passed. Sarah, the lead attendant, touched his arm gently as he stepped through the door. "Safe travels, Mr. Cole, and give Flopsy our best." Ethan almost smiled. Almost. Helen Cole was waiting at the arrivals gate. She was 62, silver-haired, 5'3", and had the particular kind of spine that comes from raising 4 children on a mechanic's salary in Scranton, Pennsylvania. She took one look at her son. The exhaustion, the set of his jaw, the way he was holding Lily just a little too tight. And she knew. "What happened?" Helen said, reaching for her granddaughter. Ethan transferred Lily into his mother's arms. The child didn't wake up. She just curled into Helen's shoulder, the way water finds its level. "Long story, Mom. I'll tell you tomorrow." "Ethan Thomas Cole, you look like you haven't slept since Tuesday. What happened?" "An airline employee decided I didn't look rich enough to sit in my own seat. She called security. Lily was awake for part of it." Helen's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, understanding, and then a cold, quiet fury that Ethan knew well. He had inherited it. "She did what?" "Mom, I handled it." "Did Lily see the police?" Ethan didn't answer.
That was answer enough. Helen pulled Lily closer. She kissed the top of her granddaughter's head.
When she looked up, her eyes were wet, but her voice was steel. You go to that meeting tomorrow. You do what you need to do.
I will.
And Ethan?
Yeah, Mom.
Don't be gentle.
He kissed Lily's forehead. He kissed his mother's cheek. He picked up his duffel bag and walked toward the taxi line. Behind him, he heard Lily murmur in her sleep.
Daddy?
He'll be back tomorrow, sweetheart, Helen whispered.
Daddy has to go teach somebody a lesson.
Ethan didn't sleep much that night. He lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, running the presentation through his head. Not the slides. He knew the slides cold. He was running through something else. He was thinking about what he was going to say when the board asked about the video. Because they would ask. They had to ask. The video had 12 million views now. 12 million people had watched Brenda scream at him while his daughter cried. The hashtag was trending in 14 countries. News outlets were picking it up.
His PR team had sent him 19 emails in the last 4 hours. His lawyer had called twice. He hadn't answered any of them. He wasn't interested in PR strategy. He wasn't interested in legal positioning. He was interested in one thing: making sure that what happened to him at Gate K-12 couldn't happen to the next father in work boots who didn't have a CEO's phone number in his pocket. At 6 a.m. he got up. He showered. He shaved for the first time in 3 days. He put on a navy suit, not bespoke, not flashy, just clean and well-fitted. A white shirt, no tie. He looked in the mirror and thought about what Brenda would say if she could see him now. She'd scan his ticket in a heartbeat, and that was exactly the problem. He arrived at Sovereign Air headquarters at 7:45 a.m. The building was a glass and steel tower that caught the morning light and threw it back at the city in sharp, blinding angles. He walked through the lobby. The security guard checked his ID and nodded. 50th floor, Mr. Cole. They're expecting you. The elevator was silent. Fast. The kind of elevator that makes your ears pop because it's moving so quickly toward very important things. The doors opened. The boardroom was already full. 12 people sat around the mahogany table. Ethan had met some of them before. At the Aspen retreat, at industry conferences, at the kind of dinners where the wine costs more than a mortgage payment. These were the people who controlled Sovereign Air. Board members, investors, power brokers, men and women who measured the world in quarterly earnings and stock price movements. Arthur Pendleton sat at the far end of the table. He was 73 years old, lean and sharp, with wire-rimmed glasses and a reputation for being the most ruthless negotiator in commercial aviation. He had been chairman of Sovereign Air's board for 11 years. He had survived 3 CEO transitions, 2 hostile takeover attempts, and a federal investigation. Nothing rattled Arthur Pendleton. But this morning, Arthur Pendleton looked rattled. Richard Sterling sat to Arthur's right. He stood when Ethan entered. "Ethan, thank you for coming in early." "I was already up," Ethan said. He took the empty chair to Richard's left. He set his duffel bag on the floor beside him. The same duffel bag with the prototypes in it. The same bag he'd been carrying through O'Hare when Brenda decided he didn't belong. Arthur Pendleton spoke first. "Mr. Cole, before we begin the formal agenda, the board would like to address the incident at O'Hare. On behalf of Sovereign Air's board of directors, I offer our sincere and unequivocal apology." Ethan looked at Arthur. He looked around the table. 12 faces looking back at him. Some apologetic, some nervous, some doing the math on what this was going to cost. "I appreciate that, Arthur," Ethan said. "But I didn't come here for an apology." "Then why don't you tell us what you came here for?" Ethan leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a moment. The silence in the room was heavy. The kind of silence that happens when very powerful people are waiting for someone to tell them how much trouble they're in. "Let me tell you what happened yesterday," Ethan said. "Not the version you saw in the video, the version my daughter saw." The room went still. Lily is 4 years old. She was asleep on my shoulder when we got to the gate. She was tired. She'd been traveling all day. She woke up because a woman was shouting at her father. He paused. Let it sit. The first thing my daughter said when she opened her eyes was, "Daddy, why is the lady mad at us? Did we do something bad?" A woman at the far end of the table, Margaret Chen, the board's lead independent director, closed her eyes. "My 4-year-old daughter," Ethan continued, "woke up in an airport, and her first thought was that she had done something wrong because a gate agent looked at her father's work clothes and decided we were trash." "Mr. Cole," Arthur began. "I'm not finished." Arthur stopped. "Then your gate agent called security. 2 officers walked toward us. Lily saw the uniforms, the badges, the belts, and she started to cry. She was terrified. She buried her face in my neck and she said, 'Daddy, I'm scared. I want to go home.'" Ethan's voice didn't waver. It didn't rise. It stayed level and controlled, and somehow that made it worse. The calm delivery of a man describing the worst moment of his week hit harder than any shout could have. "My daughter will remember that," Ethan said. "I don't know for how long. I don't know how it will shape her. But she will remember that a stranger in a uniform called the police on her father. And she will remember being afraid. She's 4. She shouldn't know what that feels like." Margaret Chen spoke. "Mr. Cole, as a mother and a grandmother, I am deeply, deeply sorry." "Thank you, Margaret, but I didn't come here for sympathy either." "Then tell us what you want," Arthur said. His voice was quiet, direct. The voice of a man who respects the person across the table enough to skip the pleasantries. Ethan reached into his duffel bag. He pulled out a thick folder and set it on the table. "This is the retrofit contract. $180 million. I've been working on it for 7 months. It's ready to sign." He put his hand flat on the folder. "But I'm not signing it today." The tension in the room spiked. Richard's champagne glass stopped halfway to his lips. Arthur's eyes narrowed. A man named David Ross, the board's financial director, shifted forward in his seat. "Not until 3 conditions are met," Ethan said. "Name them," Arthur said. "First, Brenda Harris is terminated, immediately. Gross misconduct. No severance, no quiet exit, no settlement. A public statement from Sovereign Air confirming the termination and the reason." "Done," Arthur said without hesitation. "Richard, is she still employed?" "She's suspended, waiting in the break room at O'Hare." "Not anymore. Make the call." Richard pulled out his phone. He dialed the HR director at O'Hare. He put it on speaker and set the phone in the center of the mahogany table. "Mr. Sterling?" The HR director's voice filled the boardroom. "What is the status of Brenda Harris?" Richard asked. "She's in the break room, sir. She came in this morning. She's been waiting since 7. She's pretty shaken up from the ramp duty yesterday. She says she has frostbite on her fingers. She's asking if she can go back to her desk." "She doesn't have a desk," Richard said. "Terminate her. Effective immediately. Gross misconduct. Discriminatory conduct toward a passenger. Filing a false security report. Lying to airline management about system access." A pause on the line. "Yes, sir. Understood." "No severance," Richard continued. "No benefits continuation. We are contesting her unemployment claim on grounds of willful misconduct." "I'll process it now, sir." Ethan leaned toward the phone. "This is Ethan Cole." Another pause, longer this time. "Yes, Mr. Cole."
Tell her that the man in the work boot sends his regards, and tell her to treat the next person better." Yes, sir, I will." Richard looked at Ethan. "The second condition?" $5 million, Ethan said. "Not a PR donation, not a tax write-off photo op. A real, funded training program for every frontline employee in the Sovereign Air system. Gate agents, ticket counter staff, flight attendants, ramp crews. Everyone who interacts with a passenger." "What kind of training?" Arthur asked. "Not diversity training," Ethan said. "Decency training. I don't care what corporate buzzword you put on it. I care that every single person who works for this airline understands one thing. You scan the ticket first and judge later.
Not the other way around. My firm will design the curriculum," Ethan continued. "We'll bring in experts in implicit bias, customer psychology, and de-escalation. And I will personally review the program before it's implemented."
"You want to design our employee training?" David Ross asked, his tone skeptical.
"I design airframes that carry 300 people at 500 miles an hour," Ethan said. "I think I can handle a PowerPoint about not being rude to customers." A few people at the table almost smiled. Almost. "The third condition," Ethan said. "Go ahead," Arthur said. "Sovereign Air creates a written public policy, not internal, public, stating that no passenger may be denied boarding based on physical appearance, clothing, or subjective assessment by gate staff. If a passenger has a valid ticket, they board. Period. No exceptions, no discretion. The ticket is the ticket." "That limits our agent's ability to what?" Ethan cut David off. "To decide who looks rich enough to fly? That's not a power they should have. The scanner does the job. Let it do the job." Arthur Pendleton removed his glasses. He cleaned them slowly with a cloth from his breast pocket. He put them back on. He looked at Ethan for a long moment. "All three conditions are acceptable," Arthur said. "Richard?" "Agreed." "Board?" Nods around the table. Unanimous. "Then there's one more thing," Ethan said. "And this one isn't a condition. It's a gift." Richard frowned. "A gift?" "Yesterday, before all of this happened, Brenda waved a couple through the first-class lane without scanning their tickets. The Hendersons. She said they were Diamond members. She knew them by name. She treated them like royalty." "The Hendersons are longtime customers," Richard said. "I know the name." "Pull their status," Ethan said. Richard opened his laptop. He typed for a moment. Then he stopped typing. He stared at the screen. His face changed. "What is it?" Arthur asked. Richard looked up. "Their diamond status expired 2 years ago. They were flying on companion passes yesterday. Stand by. They weren't eligible for the priority lane." The room went completely silent. "So let me make sure I understand this," Ethan said, leaning forward. "Your gate agent denied boarding to a corporate partner with a valid first-class ticket because he was wearing work clothes. And she waved through 2 passengers who didn't even have qualifying status because they were wearing cashmere." He let the words settle. "She didn't break the rules for me. She broke the rules for them. She let unauthorized passengers into the priority lane based on how they looked, while blocking an authorized passenger based on how he looked. She wasn't protecting your brand, Richard. She was running a dress code that exists nowhere in your policy manual." "This kills any wrongful termination claim," Arthur said quietly. He was already thinking like a lawyer. "She violated federal boarding protocols by allowing non-eligible passengers into the priority lane. She can't argue she was following procedure because she wasn't following it for anyone. She was making it up as she went." "Exactly," Ethan said. "She wasn't enforcing rules. She was enforcing preferences. And her preference was simple.
If you looked like money, you got in. If you didn't, you got security called on you. David Ross leaned back in his chair. Mr. Cole, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Yesterday at the gate, before Mr. Sterling arrived, you could have just walked away, gone to the counter, gotten a paper boarding pass, made the flight a different way. Why didn't you? Ethan looked at David for a long moment. Because my daughter was watching, Ethan said. If I had walked away, she would have learned that when someone treats you unfairly, you accept it. She would have learned that the person behind the podium is always right, even when they're wrong. She would have learned that how you look matters more than who you are. He shook his head. I'm not teaching her that. I'm teaching her that you stand your ground, you stay calm, you state the facts, and you don't move until the right thing happens. That's what I want her to remember from yesterday. Not the crying, not the fear. I want her to remember that her father didn't back down. The room was quiet. Margaret Chen was pressing her lips together. Even Arthur Pendleton, the man who had survived hostile takeovers without blinking, looked moved. Ethan opened the folder. He uncapped a pen. Nothing fancy, a blue ballpoint, the kind you buy in a 10-pack at the drugstore. Now, Ethan said, let's talk about the future of your fleet. He began signing. While the pen moved across the pages, while the signatures dried and the handshakes began and the board members allowed themselves to exhale, a phone was ringing in a windowless break room at O'Hare International Airport. Brenda Harris was about to have the worst morning of her life, and she didn't even know it yet. She was sitting in a plastic chair, holding a paper cup of coffee she hadn't touched, staring at the vending machine, thinking that the worst was behind her. Thinking that the bag duty had been her punishment. Thinking that Richard Sterling had said they would discuss her future, and maybe, she still had one. She heard footsteps in the hallway. She straightened up. She smoothed what was left of her hair. She tried to arrange her face into something professional, something that said, I've learned my lesson. I'm ready to get back to work. The door opened. It wasn't just the local HR rep. It was the O'Hare station manager, a woman named Patricia, who had always respected Brenda's efficiency and work ethic. And behind Patricia were 2 airport police officers. Not TSA, not security guards. Police. Brenda stood up. Her knees ached from yesterday's fall on the tarmac. Her hands were raw, 2 fingernails ripped off, the others cracked and jagged. Am I cleared to go back to the desk? Brenda asked. She tried to smile. Patricia couldn't look at her. She stared at the clipboard in her hands. Brenda Harris, Patricia said. Her voice was flat, official, the voice of someone reading words she had been told to read. As of 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, your employment with Sovereign Air is terminated, effective immediately. The coffee cup slipped from Brenda's hand. It hit the floor and splashed across the linoleum. But she didn't look down. She didn't move. Grounds for termination, Patricia continued. Gross misconduct. Discriminatory behavior toward a passenger. Filing a false security report. Providing false information to airline management regarding system access. Causing severe and measurable brand damage to Sovereign Air. No, Brenda whispered. No, I did the bags. Mr. Sterling said we would discuss. The discussion took place this morning in New York, Patricia said. The board voted unanimously. The board? Brenda's voice climbed. Why was the board involved? It was one passenger, one incident. Patricia finally looked up. Her eyes were hard. Due to the severity of the brand damage, the video has been viewed over 15 million times. Sovereign Air is contesting your unemployment claim on grounds of willful misconduct. There will be no severance package. No benefits continuation. No letter of reference. Brenda grabbed the edge of the table. You can't do this. I gave you 14 years. 14 years! I was employee of the quarter 3 times. I never missed a shift. I never— And one more thing, Patricia said. She flipped a page on her clipboard. Mr. Cole asked me to pass along a message. Brenda froze. Mr. Cole? The passenger you denied boarding yesterday. He asked me to tell you, treat the next person better.
Brenda's face crumpled. The words hit her harder than the termination, harder than the lost severance, harder than any of it. Because in those 6 words was everything she had refused to do and everything she could never take back. There's also the matter of the Henderson incident, Patricia continued. The Hendersons? Brenda blinked. What about them? They're Diamond members. I've known them for years. Their Diamond status expired 2 years ago. They were traveling on companion passes yesterday. They were not eligible for priority boarding. You waved them through without scanning their tickets, while simultaneously denying a verified first-class corporate partner. Brenda opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That constitutes a violation of federal boarding protocol, Patricia said, allowing non-eligible passengers into the priority boarding lane. It's a federal matter, Brenda, not just a company matter. I thought they were still— They always looked like— They looked like Diamond members, Patricia said. Mr. Cole looked like a construction worker. So you made your choice based on appearances, and every choice you made yesterday was wrong. Patricia snapped the clipboard shut. The sound was sharp and final, like a door closing. Officers, please escort Ms. Harris to the curbside exit. Her terminal access is revoked. If she returns to the secure area, she is to be arrested for trespassing. Brenda looked at the 2 officers. They looked back at her with the professionally blank expressions of people who do this kind of thing often enough that it no longer registers as remarkable. Can I get my things from my locker? Brenda asked. Her voice was small now, broken. Your personal items will be mailed to your home address within 5 business days, Patricia said. Officers? They stepped forward, 1 on each side. Not touching her, but close enough that the message was clear. You are leaving, and you are leaving now. Brenda walked out of the break room. She was still wearing yesterday's clothes. The stained uniform pants, the wrinkled blouse, the cracked shoes. She hadn't been home. She hadn't changed. She had come straight to the airport this morning, still believing she had a job to come back to. The hallway was long and bright. Her footsteps echoed. The officer's footsteps echoed beside hers, steady and implacable. They walked past the employee cafeteria. 2 gate agents sitting at a table looked up from their phones. One of them recognized Brenda. His eyes went wide. He elbowed his colleague. They both stared. They walked past the operations office. Through the glass, Brenda could see the shift supervisor on the phone, nodding rapidly, taking notes. The news was spreading. They walked through the employee entrance and into the public terminal. Gate K-12 was 50 yards away. Brenda could see it. Her podium, her lane, her blue carpet. Marcus was working the gate, scanning tickets, smiling at passengers. He looked up and saw Brenda being escorted by police. He looked away fast. Someone in the terminal recognized her. Hey, that's the lady from the video. Heads turned. Phones came up. Brenda pulled her collar up around her face, but it was too late. She was already the most recognized gate agent in America, and not for the reason she had spent 14 years working toward. The automatic doors opened. The cold Chicago air hit her like a wall. She stepped onto the curb outside departures. The officer stopped at the door. Ma'am, you are not permitted to re-enter the terminal. Have a good day. The doors closed behind her. Brenda stood on the curb.
The wind cut through her thin blouse. She had no coat. Her blazer was still inside, draped over the back of her desk chair at a desk that was no longer hers. She had no badge, no ID, no reference letter, no severance check. She had her phone. She pulled it out with shaking, raw-fingered hands and opened it. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, 211 notifications. The hashtag was everywhere. Gatekeeper Brenda. Trending number 2 globally. The video had crossed 20 million views overnight. People had found her Facebook, her LinkedIn, her son's Instagram. They were commenting on everything, tagging everything, screenshotting everything. And then a new notification popped up. A push alert from a news app. Sovereign Air's official account had posted a video. Richard Sterling, standing in front of the company logo, his face grave. She pressed play. Sovereign Air has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind. We can confirm that the employee involved in the incident at Chicago O'Hare has been terminated for gross misconduct. We extend our sincere apologies to Mr. Ethan Cole, a valued partner and member of our corporate family. Effective immediately, Sovereign Air is implementing a $5 million frontline training program and a new public policy ensuring that no passenger will be denied boarding based on appearance. Brenda's phone slipped from her fingers. It hit the concrete and the screen cracked diagonally, a jagged line running from corner to corner. She didn't pick it up. She stood there on the curb at O'Hare International Airport, in the cold, in yesterday's ruined clothes, with broken nails, and no job, and no plan, and no one coming to get her. Above her, a Sovereign Air 787 lifted off the runway. The engines roared. The landing gear folded up. The plane climbed into the gray January sky, carrying passengers to places Brenda would never go again. She watched it until it disappeared into the clouds. The Uber took 40 minutes to arrive. Brenda stood on the curb the entire time because there was nowhere else to go.
She couldn't go back inside. She couldn't go to the employee parking garage because her access badge was sitting in a plastic bag on Patricia's desk. She couldn't even sit down because the benches outside departures were wet with sleet, and she was already soaked through from yesterday's tarmac duty. So she stood, and she shook, and she watched the taxis come and go, watched the families and business travelers and flight crews walk past her into the terminal she had just been escorted out of, and she tried to make her brain accept what had happened. 14 years. Gone. Not in 14 days, not in 14 hours, in 14 minutes. A phone call from New York, a clipboard, 2 police officers, and a walk down a hallway. That's all it took to erase everything she had built. When the Uber finally pulled up, a gray Camry with a cracked windshield and an air freshener shaped like a pine tree, Brenda climbed into the back seat and gave her address. The driver looked at her in the rearview mirror. He looked at the high-vis vest she was still wearing over her ruined blouse. He looked at her raw, swollen hands and her mascara-streaked face. "Rough day?" he asked. Brenda didn't answer. She turned her head toward the window and pressed her forehead against the cold glass. The driver shrugged and merged into traffic. Brenda's phone was in her lap, the cracked screen still glowing with notifications. She didn't want to look. She looked anyway. The way people look at car accidents. The way people touch bruises to see if they still hurt. They still hurt. Her Facebook page had been found. The comments were pouring in faster than she could scroll. Strangers calling her things she had never been called before. People tagging her employer, her former employer, demanding to know why she still had a job. She didn't have a job. They just didn't know yet.
Her LinkedIn profile had been screenshotted and shared thousands of times.
Someone had circled her job title, Senior Gate Lead, Sovereign Air, and written, "Not anymore," in red letters across it. That image alone had been shared 40,000 times. Her son's Instagram had been tagged. Kyle was 20 years old, a junior at Northern Illinois. His last post was a picture of himself and his roommates at a basketball game. The comments under it were vicious. "Your mom is a racist. Apple doesn't fall far. Tell your mom she's famous." Brenda felt her stomach lurch. She opened her text messages. Kyle had texted her 17 times. The first one, sent at 6 a.m. "Mom, what is this video everyone is sending me?" Then, "Mom, call me." Then, "Mom, this is everywhere." Then, "Mom, my RA just showed it to me. What happened?" Then, "Mom, please call me. People are tagging me in this." Then, "Mom, I'm scared. Are you okay?" Then, "I love you, but I don't know what to do. Please call me." Brenda's hands were shaking too badly to type. She pressed the call button. It rang twice. "Mom?" Kyle's voice was tight. Careful. The voice of a 20-year-old trying to be steady when his world was tilting. "Kyle?" Brenda's voice broke on his name. "Mom, what happened? I've seen the video. Everyone's seen the video. My professor showed it in class this morning as a discussion topic. I had to walk out. Mom, what were you thinking?" "I made a mistake, Kyle. I made a terrible mistake." "A mistake? Mom, you screamed to the guy holding his kid. You called security on him. His daughter was crying. It's on camera. Everyone can see it." I know what it looks like. But you have to understand, he was what, Mom? What was he?" Brenda closed her eyes. What was he? What was Ethan Cole? He was a man in work clothes with a sleeping child. That's what he was. And she had looked at him and seen something else. Something that said, "Not good enough." Something that said, "Not here." Something that said, "Not one of us." "I thought he was trying to cut the line," Brenda whispered. "I thought the ticket was fake." "Did you scan it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because She stopped. Because she what? Because he had concrete on his boots? Because his jacket was torn? Because he looked like a man who worked with his hands instead of a keyboard? Because in Brenda's world, first class had a uniform, and Ethan Cole wasn't wearing it? "I don't know, Kyle. I don't know why I didn't just scan it." "Mom," Kyle's voice got quieter, more serious. "The video is really bad, but there's something worse." "What could be worse?" "People are saying the guy you yelled at, he designed the engines or something? For the airline? And the CEO was there?" "He designed the airframe, the structural, it doesn't matter. Yes, the CEO was there. He saw everything." "And they fired you?" "This morning." Kyle was quiet for a long time. Brenda could hear his breathing. She could hear, faintly, the sound of his roommate's TV in the background. "What are you going to do, Mom?" "I don't know." "Do you have savings?" Brenda thought about her bank account. She had about $4,000. The mortgage was $2,200 a month. Her car payment was $380. Utilities, insurance. Kyle's portion of the tuition that his scholarship didn't cover. She had maybe 6 weeks before things got very bad. "I'll figure it out," Brenda said. "Mom, I can get a job. I can help." "No, you are staying in school. You are finishing your degree. This is my problem, Kyle, not yours."
It became my problem when your face showed up in my group chat, Mom. Brenda pressed her hand over her mouth to keep the sob from coming through the phone. She failed. I'm sorry, she whispered. Kyle, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to. I know, Mom. I know you didn't mean it. But you did it. And now we have to deal with what comes next.
When had her son become the adult in the conversation? When had the boy she used to drive to Little League started talking to her like she was the one who needed guidance? Brenda didn't know. But she heard it in his voice. Not anger, not judgment, but the heavy, exhausted patience of someone who loves you and is disappointed in you at the same time. I love you, Mom, Kyle said. But you need to talk to a lawyer. Today. I can't afford a lawyer. You can't afford not to. Call Uncle Ray. He knows people. Okay. And Mom? Yeah? Stay off the internet. Seriously. Don't read the comments. Don't look at the trending stuff. Just don't. Okay, baby. I love you. I love you too, Kyle. She hung up. The Uber was pulling onto her street. A quiet block in Schaumburg. Modest ranch houses, small yards. The kind of neighborhood where people waved to each other and mowed their lawns on Saturday mornings. Brenda's house was at the end of the cul-de-sac. White siding, blue shutters, a ceramic garden gnome by the front steps that Kyle had given her as a joke on Mother's Day 3 years ago. She paid the driver. She walked to her front door. She reached for her keys and realized they were in her locker at O'Hare. The locker she would never open again. The spare key was under the gnome. She knelt down, her aching knees screaming, and retrieved it. She went inside. The house was dark and quiet. It smelled like the coffee she had made yesterday morning. Was it only yesterday? Before she drove to work. Before she put on her perfect uniform. Before she polished her name tag and sprayed her hair and walked into Terminal 4 believing that she was someone who mattered. She sat down on the couch without taking off her shoes. She sat there in the dark, in her stained uniform pants and her dirty blouse and her cracked shoes, and she stared at the wall. On the wall was a framed photo from 5 years ago. Brenda, in her Sovereign Air uniform, standing in front of gate K-12, holding a plaque. Employee of the Quarter. She was smiling in the photo. A real smile. A proud smile. The smile of a woman who believed she had found her place in the world. She looked at that photo for a long time. Then she got up, walked to the kitchen, and opened her laptop. Kyle had told her not to look. She looked anyway. The video was everywhere. Not just TikTok anymore. It was on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Reddit, on YouTube. News sites had picked it up. There were articles with headlines that made her stomach turn. Sovereign Air gate agent humiliates single dad and crying child. Gatekeeper Brenda, the airport power trip seen round the world. Airline employee denies engineer who designed their own planes. Someone had made a meme. It was a screenshot of Brenda's face mid-shout, her finger pointed at Ethan, with the caption, "When the guy you called security on designed the plane you're standing next to." It had been shared 200,000 times. Someone else had found her employee photo from the Sovereign Air website, the same one that hung on her wall, and turned it into a side-by-side with the video screenshot. Employee of the Quarter to unemployed in 24 hours. Brenda closed the laptop. She opened it again. She closed it. She opened it. She couldn't stop. She found a thread on Reddit. Thousands of comments. She started reading. She knew she shouldn't. She read anyway. She looked at that man like he was beneath her, while he was holding his child.
The moment that little girl asked, "Did we do something bad?" I lost it. Brenda deserves everything she gets. I work as a gate agent. This woman is the reason people hate us. The job is to scan the ticket. That's it. Scan the ticket.
He designed the airframe of the plane. The plane. And she told him he didn't belong. You cannot make this up. The real kicker is the Hendersons. She waved them through without scanning because they looked right. She blocked him because he didn't. It was never about security. It was about aesthetics. Brenda slammed the laptop shut. She sat in the silence of her kitchen, and she tried to figure out where everything had gone wrong. Not yesterday. Before yesterday. The chain of decisions, the accumulation of beliefs, the slow hardening of assumptions that had led her to look at a tired father in a canvas jacket and see a threat instead of a passenger. She thought about the Hendersons. She had known them for years. Or had she? She knew their names. She knew they wore nice clothes. She knew they smiled at her and called her by name. She had assumed they were Diamond members because they acted like Diamond members. She had never actually checked. Not once. Not in 4 years. She thought about Ethan Cole, standing at her podium, holding out his phone, asking, not demanding, not shouting, asking her to scan a QR code. A 4-second task. Beep, green screen, welcome aboard. 4 seconds. And she had refused. She had refused because something inside her, something she couldn't name, something she didn't want to examine, had looked at his dusty boots and his torn jacket and his tired face and said, no. Not, no, this ticket is fraudulent. Not, no, there's a security concern. Just, no. No, you don't belong here. No, this isn't for you. No, people like you don't sit in seats like that. She had been so sure, and she had been so wrong. The phone rang. She picked it up without checking the caller ID. Ms. Harris, this is Janet Willoughby from Channel 7 News. We'd love to get your side of the story about the incident at O'Hare. Would you be willing to... Brenda hung up. The phone rang again. Different number. Brenda Harris, this is Mike Salazar with the Tribune. I'm working on a story about... She hung up. It rang again. And again. And again. 4 calls in 10 minutes. Reporters, producers, a podcast host. Someone claiming to be from a digital media company who wanted to give her a platform to share her truth. Brenda turned the phone off. She sat in the kitchen until the light through the window shifted from gray morning to gray afternoon. She didn't eat. She didn't change clothes. She didn't shower. She sat and she thought. And the more she thought, the worse it got. Because every thread she pulled led back to the same place. The moment she had looked at Ethan Cole and made a decision that had nothing to do with airline policy and everything to do with who she was. At 3 o'clock, she called her brother Ray. Ray was a retired paramedic who lived in Joliet. He wasn't a lawyer, but he knew people, like Kyle had said. He picked up on the first ring. Brenda, I've been waiting for you to call. I've seen the video. Everyone's seen the video, Ray. Are you okay? No. What do you need? I need a lawyer. They fired me. No severance. They're contesting my unemployment. Ray was quiet for a moment. Brenda, I have to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Okay? In the video, when you said those things to that man, when you wouldn't scan his ticket, was it because of what he was wearing, or was there something else going on? Brenda knew what he was asking.
He was asking if she had profiled Ethan Cole. He was asking if it was about class, about assumptions, about the invisible line she had drawn between people who belong and people who don't. It was because of what he was wearing, Brenda said. He looked like he couldn't afford the seat, and I decided, without checking, that he didn't have it. That's what I was afraid of, Ray said. I know. Brenda, I love you. You're my sister.
But what you did was wrong. I know that too. I'll make some calls. There's a guy in the city who does employment law. He might take a consultation. But Brenda, I have to be straight with you. If you let those people through without scanning them, and they didn't have status, and you blocked a paying customer at the same time, that's not just a company policy violation. That could be a federal issue. The boarding protocols are regulated by the DOT. I know. You could be looking at more than just a firing. Brenda pressed her palm against her forehead. I know, Ray. I know. Okay, I'll call the lawyer. You sit tight. Don't talk to any reporters. Don't post anything online. Don't talk to anyone from the airline. And Brenda? Yeah? I mean this with love. What you did to that man and his little girl, you need to sit with that. Not the firing, not the internet, not the legal stuff. You need to sit with what you did to a father and his child and understand why you did it. Because if you don't figure that out, it doesn't matter if you get another job or win a lawsuit or any of that. It'll happen again. Brenda didn't say anything. I love you, sis. I'll call you tonight. Love you too, Ray. She hung up. She put the phone down on the kitchen table. She looked at the blank screen. She looked at the employee of the quarter photo on the wall. She looked at the ceramic gnome visible through the window, standing guard by the front steps, smiling its stupid ceramic smile. And then Brenda Harris put her head in her hands and cried. She cried for a long time. She cried until her ribs ached and her throat was raw and the tears had soaked through the collar of her blouse. She cried for her job and her reputation and her mortgage and her son's embarrassment. She cried because she was alone in a dark house with no plan and no prospects and no way to undo what she had done. But somewhere underneath all of that, underneath the self-pity and the fear and the anger at the world for punishing her so completely, a small, unwelcome truth was trying to make itself heard. She had looked at a man holding his daughter, and she had decided he was nothing. Not because of anything he said, not because of anything he did, because of what he was wearing, because of the dust on his boots and the stickers on his backpack and the stuffed rabbit in his daughter's hands, because he didn't match the picture in her head of what a first-class passenger was supposed to look like. And the worst part, the part that sat in her chest like a stone, was that if Ethan Cole had been wearing a suit, she would have scanned his ticket without a second thought. She would have smiled. She would have said, "Welcome aboard." She would have never known his name, or his story, or his patents, or his dead wife, or his daughter's stuffed rabbit. He would have been just another passenger. But he wasn't wearing a suit, so she had treated him like a criminal. Ray was right. The internet didn't matter. The lawyers didn't matter. What mattered was the question she couldn't stop hearing in her head, in the small, confused voice of a 4-year-old girl. "Daddy, did we do something bad?" Brenda pressed her hands flat on the kitchen table and stared at them. Raw, red, 2 fingernails gone, the expensive manicure destroyed. These were the hands that had blocked a boarding pass. These were the hands that had pointed at a man and called for security. These were the hands that had waved the Hendersons through because they looked right. She didn't recognize them anymore. In New York, 300 miles away, Ethan Cole was in the back of a black car heading to Teterboro Airport. The contract was signed. The handshakes were done. The $5 million training fund was being set up. The public policy would be announced by end of week. He pulled out his phone and video called Lily. She answered from his mother's kitchen. There was maple syrup on her chin, and Flopsy was propped up against the salt shaker like a dinner guest.
"Daddy, Grandma made pancakes with faces on them."
"That sounds amazing, sweetheart. Did Flopsy get one?"
"Flopsy got the biggest one, but she can't eat it because she's a rabbit."
Ethan laughed. A real laugh. The first one in 2 days. "I'll be home tonight, Lily. Late. But I'll come in and kiss you goodnight, okay?"
"Okay. Daddy?"
"Yeah, baby?"
"Are we going on airplanes again?"
Ethan paused. He thought about gate K-12. He thought about Brenda's finger pointing at his chest. He thought about the sound his daughter made when she saw the officers walking toward them. "Yeah, sweetheart. We'll fly again."
"Will the mean lady be there?"
"No, baby. She won't be there." "Good." Lily nodded seriously. "Flopsy says she should have been nicer." "Flopsy's right," Ethan said. "Flopsy is always right." "I know," Lily said, as if this were the most obvious fact in the world. "Bye, Daddy. Love you." "Love you too, Lil. More than anything." The screen went dark. Ethan put his phone in his pocket. He leaned his head back against the leather seat and closed his eyes. He didn't feel victorious. He didn't feel satisfied. He felt tired. The kind of tired that goes deeper than sleep, deeper than muscle, down into the place where a person keeps the things they carry alone. He thought about Sarah, his wife, the woman who should have been sitting next to him on that plane, the woman who would have handled Brenda with a raised eyebrow and a smile that could freeze lava, the woman who had spent 6 months in a hospital bed and never once complained, and who had held Ethan's hand on the last night and said, "Take care of our girl." That's the only thing that matters. He was trying, every day, in work boots and concrete dust and wrinkled jackets, with a backpack covered in princess stickers and a stuffed rabbit with one ear. He was trying. The car turned onto the road leading to Teterboro. Through the window, Ethan could see a small white jet waiting on the tarmac. His jet, back from maintenance, ready to take him home. He would be home by 9. He would walk into Lily's room and find her asleep, Flopsy tucked under her chin, the nightlight casting a soft glow across her face. He would kiss her forehead. He would whisper, "Daddy's home." And she would murmur something in her sleep and roll over, safe and warm and unaware of the boardrooms and the contracts and the cold tarmacs of the adult world. That was enough. That had to be enough. 3 weeks passed. The internet moved on the way the internet always does. Fast, hungry, and without looking back. Gatekeeper Brenda trended for 9 days, peaked at #1 globally on the 4th day, and then slowly slid down the rankings as the next outrage, the next villain, the next viral moment took its place. A senator got caught lying about campaign funds. A celebrity's dog bit a paparazzi. The cycle turned. But for the people who had stood at Gate K-12 that Friday afternoon, the cycle didn't turn. For them, it kept spinning in the same tight circle, around and around, like luggage on a carousel that nobody was picking up. Brenda Harris had not left her house in 11 days. The curtains were drawn. The ceramic gnome by the front steps was still smiling, but it had been knocked over by a teenager who had driven by and thrown a fast food cup at it, after finding Brenda's address in an online thread. The gnome now lay on its side in the dead winter grass, still grinning, covered in frozen Sprite. Inside, Brenda sat at her kitchen table. The same table where she had cried, the same table where she had called Kyle. the same table where she had opened her laptop and watched the world tear her apart. The laptop was closed now. She hadn't opened it in 6 days. She had deleted the TikTok app. She had deactivated her Facebook. She had taken her LinkedIn profile down after someone had created a fake job listing under her name. Professional gate agent, specializing in judging books by their covers. 15 years of experience in making children cry. She had lost 9 pounds. Not on purpose. She just wasn't eating. The refrigerator had milk, a block of cheese, and half a loaf of bread that was starting to turn. She ate toast in the morning and sometimes cheese at night, and she drank coffee that she made too strong because the bitterness felt appropriate. Ray's lawyer had called. A man named Vincent DeLuca, who worked out of a small office on Michigan Avenue. He had reviewed the case. He had been direct. Ms. Harris, I'm going to be honest with you. You have very limited options. What does that mean? It means you were terminated for cause. The grounds are solid. Discriminatory conduct, false reporting, lying to management, violation of federal boarding protocol. The Henderson situation alone would be enough to justify the termination. You allowed non-eligible passengers into a restricted boarding lane while simultaneously denying a verified ticket holder. But I didn't know their status had expired. I thought, that's the problem, Ms. Harris. You didn't check. You assumed. And the assumptions you made went in one direction for some passengers and a very different direction for others. Any employment tribunal is going to look at the video, look at the Henderson records, and draw the same conclusion the airline did. So, there's nothing I can do? You can file an appeal with the State Unemployment Board. I can help you with that. But the airline is contesting your claim, and they have documentation. The odds aren't good. What about wrongful termination? Vincent was quiet for a moment. Ms. Harris, a wrongful termination suit requires evidence that the employer acted improperly. In this case, the employer has a video viewed by 30 million people showing you screaming at a passenger, a system log showing the manifest was accessible when you said it wasn't, a security report filed by officers stating the passenger was calm throughout, and records showing you admitted non-eligible passengers to the priority lane. I cannot build a case on that foundation. No attorney can. Brenda had thanked him. She had hung up. She had sat at the kitchen table and stared at the wall until the light changed from afternoon to evening. The mortgage payment was due in 12 days. She had enough for this month. Barely. After that, the math stopped working. She had applied for 3 jobs in the last week. 2 airline positions, one at United, one at Southwest, and a customer service role at a hotel chain. All 3 had come back with the same answer. Not the same words, but the same answer. We appreciate your interest, but we've decided to move forward with other candidates. She knew what that meant. They had Googled her name. Everyone Googled everyone. And when you Googled Brenda Harris, the first thing that came up, the first 10 things that came up, was the video. She was radioactive. She was unemployable. She was the cautionary tale that HR departments would show in training sessions for the next decade. This is what happens when you let bias override procedure. This is what happens when you judge a passenger by their clothes instead of their ticket. She knew this because Sovereign Air had already started. Kyle had texted her a screenshot from a friend who worked part-time at O'Hare. It was a slide from the new training program, the one Ethan Cole had demanded. The one funded by the $5 million she had helped create the need for. The slide showed a silhouette of a gate agent blocking a passenger. The header read, "The ticket is the ticket. Appearance is not authorization." They hadn't used her name. They hadn't needed to. Everyone knew. Kyle came home on a Saturday.
He drove up from DeKalb in his 12-year-old Honda Civic, the one Brenda had helped him buy with a combination of savings and a small loan she was still paying off, or had been paying off, before the paychecks stopped. He walked in without knocking. He found her in the kitchen. Same spot. Same stained uniform pants she had been wearing for 3 days because laundry required energy she didn't have. "Mom!" Kyle stood in the doorway. He was 20 years old. He had his father's height and his mother's stubbornness, and a look on his face that was trying very hard to be strong.
"Hey, baby," Brenda said. She tried to smile. It didn't land. Kyle sat down across from her. He put a grocery bag on the table. He had brought food. Real food. Chicken, vegetables, rice, bread that wasn't turning green. "When's the last time you ate something that wasn't toast?" "I'm fine, Kyle." "You're not fine. You're sitting in the dark, wearing the same clothes you wore 3 days ago. The gnome is knocked over. There's a pizza box on the porch that's been there since Thursday. You're not fine, Mom." Brenda looked at her son. He looked older than 20. He looked like someone who had been carrying a weight that wasn't his to carry. "I'm sorry," Brenda said. "I know this has been hard on you too." "It has. My roommate's girlfriend recognized you in the video. She told everyone on our floor. For about a week I was the gatekeeper's kid. People were weird about it. Some were nice, some weren't." "Kyle, I'm so—" "Mom, stop apologizing to me." "I'm not the one you owe an apology to." Brenda went quiet. Kyle leaned forward. "Have you thought about what you're going to do?" "I've applied for jobs. Nobody's calling back." "I don't mean jobs, Mom. I mean, have you thought about what Uncle Ray said? About sitting with it? About figuring out why you did what you did?" Brenda looked at the table. She picked at a scratch in the wood with her thumbnail. The thumbnail that had grown back crooked after she'd ripped it off on the tarmac. "I've been thinking about it every day, Kyle. Every single day. I think about it when I wake up, and I think about it when I can't sleep. I see that little girl's face. I hear her asking her father if they did something bad. I hear it over and over." "Good," Kyle said. And he didn't say it with cruelty. He said it with the quiet conviction of a young man who loved his mother enough to tell her the truth. "You should hear it. Because she was 4 years old, Mom. She was 4. And she was scared because of you." "I know." "Do you? Because in the video, and I've watched it more times than I should have, you didn't look sorry. You looked like you thought you were right. Even when the CEO showed up, even when he scanned the ticket, you were still arguing. You were still saying it was the guy's fault." "I was scared, Kyle. I was embarrassed. I had called security. People were watching. I couldn't—" "You couldn't admit you were wrong." Brenda closed her eyes. "That's the thing, Mom. It wasn't about the hoodie. It wasn't about the boots. It was about you not being able to say, 'I made a mistake,' when you still had the chance to fix it. He gave you chances. He kept saying, 'Just scan the ticket,' over and over, and you wouldn't do it. Not because you couldn't. Because admitting you were wrong felt worse than doubling down." Brenda opened her eyes. Tears were running down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. She let them fall. "When did you get so smart?" she whispered. "I'm not smart, Mom. I'm just outside the situation. You're inside it, and inside it, everything looks different. I get that. But you have to come outside now. You have to look at it the way everyone else sees it. Everyone else sees a monster. Everyone else sees a woman who made a terrible choice. There's a difference. Monsters can't change. Women can." Brenda reached across the table and took her son's hand. He squeezed back. "What do I do, Kyle?" "I think you write him a letter."
Write who a letter? Mr. Cole, the man from the gate. Brenda pulled her hand back. He doesn't want to hear from me. He got me fired. He made sure I got nothing. No severance, no unemployment. He wanted me destroyed. Mom, Kyle's voice was firm. He didn't destroy you. You destroyed you. He just made sure there were consequences. There's a difference. And from everything I've read, he didn't go after you with joy. He went after the problem.
You were the problem. Brenda flinched. I'm not saying that to hurt you, Kyle said. I'm saying it because if you write that letter, not for him, for you, maybe you can start to move forward. Maybe you can start to figure out who you want to be on the other side of this. He won't read it. Maybe not, but you'll have written it, and that matters. Kyle stayed for 3 hours. He cooked dinner. The chicken wasn't great, overcooked and underseasoned. But Brenda ate every bite because her son had made it, and because he was sitting across from her, and because for the first time in 3 weeks, she wasn't alone in the kitchen. After he left, Brenda sat at the table for another hour. Then she got up. She took a shower. She put on clean clothes, just sweatpants and a t-shirt, nothing special, but clean. She washed her face. She looked in the mirror. She looked old, older than she was. The lines around her eyes were deeper. The hollows in her cheeks were new. Her hair was flat and unwashed, and streaked with gray she had been coloring for years, but couldn't afford to color anymore. She sat down at the kitchen table with a pen and a piece of paper. Not the laptop. Paper. Because some things need to be written by hand. She started writing. Mr. Cole, my name is Brenda Harris. I was the gate agent at K-12. She stopped. She crossed it out. He knew who she was. She started again. Mr. Cole, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. She stopped again. That sounded like she was asking for something. She took a new piece of paper. Mr. Cole, I have thought about your daughter every day since that Friday at O'Hare. I have thought about the look on her face when she woke up. I have thought about what she said to you. Did we do something bad, Daddy? I want you to know that those words are the thing that keeps me up at night. Not the firing, not the video, not the money I don't have, or the job I can't find. Your daughter's question. That's what I can't escape. Because the answer is no. She didn't do anything bad. You didn't do anything bad. I did. I looked at you and I decided who you were based on nothing. Based on your jacket and your boots and the stickers on your backpack. I decided you were less than. I decided you didn't belong. And I was so sure of it that I was willing to call police on you while your 4-year-old watched. I cannot undo that. I can't unscare your daughter. I can't unsay what I said. I can't unpoint my finger or uncall that security team or undo the moment your little girl started to cry because she thought people in uniforms were going to take her daddy away. I don't know if you'll ever tell Lily about that day when she's older. I don't know what you'll say. But if she ever asks why the lady was so mean, I hope you'll tell her this. The lady was scared too. Not of you. Of herself. Of the thing inside her that made her look at a good man and see a bad one. Of the ugly, small part of her that needed to feel powerful more than she needed to be kind. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am telling you that I understand now what I did, and I will carry it for the rest of my life. You told me that true character is how you treat people when you think they can't do anything for you. You were right. I failed. Your daughter asked if she did something bad. Please tell her she didn't. Please tell her the lady is sorry.
Please tell Flopsy I'm sorry too. Brenda signed it. She sealed it in an envelope. She addressed it to Cole Structural Systems, New York, New York. She didn't have the exact address. She would look it up in the morning. She put the envelope on the table. She turned off the kitchen light. She went to bed. She didn't sleep well, but she slept. And for the first time in 3 weeks, she didn't dream about Gate K-12.
The letter arrived at Cole Structural Systems on a Tuesday. It sat in a pile of mail on Ethan's assistant's desk for 2 days before she flagged it. Handwritten envelope, no return address, forwarded from the general mailbox. "This one looks personal," she said, handing it to Ethan. He was in his office. Lily's drawings were taped to the wall behind his desk. Stick figures and rainbows, and an airplane that looked more like a bird with a square body. Flopsy was sitting on the bookshelf. Lily had insisted that Flopsy go to work with Daddy for a week, and the week had turned into a month, and now the one-eared rabbit was a permanent fixture next to the engineering manuals and the patent certificates. Ethan opened the envelope. He read the letter. He read it twice. He sat with it for a long time. He turned his chair toward the window and looked out at the city, the steel and glass, the cranes building the next thing, the bridges carrying people across the water. Bridges he had helped design, structures he had strengthened, things that held. He thought about Brenda on the tarmac, in the cold, lifting bags with her bare hands. He thought about her standing on the curb alone. He thought about her in a dark house in Schaumburg, staring at a wall, hearing his daughter's voice ask a question that had no good answer. He picked up his phone. He didn't call Brenda. He called Richard Sterling. "Richard, it's Ethan." "Ethan, how's the retrofit rollout going?" "On schedule. Listen, I need to ask you something. The new training program, the one we're implementing across the system." "What about it?" "I want to add something to it. A speaker. Someone who can talk to the frontline staff about what it feels like to be on the other side of the podium. Not from a manual, not from a corporate video. From experience." "What kind of experience?" "The kind of experience you get when you make the worst mistake of your career and lose everything because of it." Richard was quiet. "Ethan, are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying that firing Brenda Harris was the right call. I'm saying that contesting her unemployment was the right call. I'm saying that every consequence she received was earned. But I'm also saying that a woman who destroyed her own life because of her biases might be the most effective teacher we could ever put in front of a room full of gate agents." "You want to hire her? For the training program?" "I want to offer her a chance. Not a job, not redemption. A chance to do something useful with the worst thing she ever did. She can say yes, or she can say no. But I want to make the offer." "Ethan, the board will have questions." "The board will have my answer. People aren't disposable. Not the passenger she humiliated. Not the woman who humiliated him. If this training program is going to mean anything, it needs a human face, not a corporate slide. A real person who stood behind that podium and made the choice that everyone in that room is capable of making." Richard let out a long breath. "You're a better man than I am, Ethan." "No, I'm not. I'm a man who sat in first class and watched a woman throw bags in the snow and felt satisfied about it. That's not the man I want my daughter to see. So I'm choosing to do something different. I'll set it up. I'll have HR reach out." "Thank you, Richard." "Ethan?" "Yeah?" "Your wife would be proud of you." Ethan closed his eyes. He pressed his thumb and forefinger against the bridge of his nose. He took a breath. "I hope so," he said. "I really hope so." He hung up. He looked at Flopsy on the bookshelf.
The rabbit stared back with its one remaining button eye. "Don't judge me," Ethan said to the rabbit. He picked up the letter again. He read the last line one more time.
Please tell Flopsy I'm sorry too.
He folded the letter carefully and put it in the top drawer of his desk. Not in the trash, not in the shredder. In the drawer, next to a photo of Sarah and a crayon drawing of a family. Stick figure dad, stick figure daughter, stick figure mom with wings. That evening, Ethan drove home. The house was warm. Helen had made spaghetti. Lily was sitting at the kitchen table with sauce on her chin and a piece of garlic bread in each hand.
Daddy!
She dropped the bread and ran to him. He picked her up and held her. She smelled like tomato sauce and shampoo and the particular sweetness that belongs only to children.
How was your day, Daddy?
It was a good day, sweetheart.
Did you build something?
Not today. Today I fixed something.
What did you fix?
Ethan kissed the top of her head. Something that was broken. Lily nodded, satisfied. She wiggled down from his arms and ran back to her spaghetti.
Helen was watching from the kitchen doorway. She had that look, the mother look, the one that sees through walls and decades and pretense.
You okay?
Helen asked quietly.
Yeah, Mom, I'm okay.
You sure? I'm sure. He sat down at the table. Lily pushed a piece of garlic bread toward him.
This one's yours, Daddy. I saved it.
Thank you, Lil.
Flopsy says you're welcome.
He picked up the bread. He took a bite. He looked at his daughter across the table, sauce-covered, gap-toothed, fierce, and unbroken. And he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not satisfaction, not victory, not revenge. Peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you stood your ground when it mattered, fought for the right things when it counted, and found the strength to offer a hand to someone who didn't deserve it. Not because they earned it, but because the kind of man your daughter needs you to be is the kind of man who offers it anyway.
6 months later, a woman in a simple blouse and flat shoes stood at a podium in a Sovereign Air training center in Dallas. There were 42 gate agents in the room. They were new hires. They had notebooks open and pens ready, and the eager, nervous energy of people starting a new chapter. The woman at the podium took a breath. She gripped the edges of the lectern. Her nails were short and unpainted. Her hands were steady. "My name is Brenda Harris," she said. "6 months ago, I stood at a gate podium at O'Hare International Airport. A man walked up to me holding his 4-year-old daughter. He had a first-class ticket. He asked me to scan it. And I refused." She paused. The room was silent. "I refused because he was wearing work boots and a torn jacket. I refused because he had dust on his clothes and stickers on his backpack. I refused because he didn't look the way I thought a first-class passenger should look.
And because of that decision, that one decision, I lost my career, my income, my reputation, and very nearly my son's respect." She looked out at the faces watching her. Young faces, nervous faces, faces that would stand behind podiums at airports all over the country and make 1,000 small decisions every day about who belongs and who doesn't. The man I turned away had designed the structural framework of the aircraft I was standing next to. He was a board liaison for the airline I worked for. His company held a $180 million contract with Sovereign Air. And his 4-year-old daughter asked him, while I watched, "Daddy, did we do something bad?" Brenda's voice caught. She stopped. She took a breath. She continued, "I'm not here to tell you I'm a victim. I'm not. I'm here because the man I humiliated, the man who had every reason to walk away and never look back, decided that my worst moment
could become someone else's best lesson.
I'm here because Ethan Cole believed that people aren't disposable, even the ones who make terrible choices. She picked up a scanner from the podium, a standard airline boarding pass scanner, the same model she had used for 14 years. "This is your job," Brenda said, holding it up. "This, right here. You scan the ticket, you check the screen. Green means welcome aboard. That's it. You don't scan their clothes. You don't scan their shoes. You don't scan the color of their skin, or the bags under their eyes, or the stickers on their backpack. You scan the ticket. Because the person standing in front of you might be a CEO. They might be an engineer. They might be a single dad who hasn't slept in 2 days and is holding his whole world on one shoulder." She put the scanner down. Or they might be nobody. They might be someone with no title and no money and no powerful friends. And that's the point. It shouldn't matter. The ticket is the ticket. The person is a person. And how you treat them when you think they're nobody is exactly who you are. She stepped back from the podium. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then one person clapped. Then another. Then all of them. 42 people standing and clapping in a training room in Dallas, Texas, for a woman who had lost everything and was trying, one room at a time, to earn something back. Not her job, not her reputation, something harder. Something that doesn't come with a name tag or a severance package or a plaque on the wall. The right to look at herself in the mirror and believe that the woman looking back was better than the woman who had stood at gate K-12 and turned away a father holding his child. Brenda walked off the stage. She sat down in a chair in the hallway. She pulled out her phone. She had a text from Kyle. "How'd it go, Mom?" She typed back, "I think it went okay. Proud of you." She stared at those 2 words for a long time. Then she put the phone away, straightened her blouse, and walked back into the room to answer questions from 42 people who would never make the mistake she made. Because the ticket is the ticket. The person is a person. And you never know who's carrying the weight of the world on one shoulder and a one-eared rabbit on the other.